We do it in English. Welcome everybody, welcome to VivaTech. Super glad to be here with you. Today we're going to talk about M&A in the context of cloud computing. My name is William Grosjean, I'm part of AWS, work in private pricing, and I have two guests for today. My first guest is Bernard. Bernard is the IT strategy officer of Vestiaire Collective. So Vestiaire Collective is a wonderful French startup which has faced many round series, and Bernard will share his experience on M&A and how he managed to acquire a company within the cloud, and we will have some questions for him. And my second guest, sorry.
Hello, thank you very much. Thank you, William.
A pleasure, Bernard. Second guest is Emeric Staspino, who's the CTO of DL Software. So DL Software, for people who are not familiar, is a software company which deploys several different softwares for different niche industries, and their strategy is acquisition of several small software companies. So another interesting experience of M&A. And if you are okay, Bernard, I will start with you. I mean, my first question. Sorry, Emeric, do you want to say a word?
Hello.
Wonderful. So, Bernard, I want to start with you, if you're okay. My first question would be, can you share to the audience your personal experience of a recent M&A, and how did you manage to acquire a company that was already on the cloud, and you, as Vestiaire Collective, already on the cloud? How did you handle those two technos, if they were not the same? What was your strategy, and what kind of lessons learned you can share to the audience?
Okay, I will. Thank you, William, and thank you, Amazon, for the invitation. Just before responding to your question, I will say one word about Vestiaire Collective. You know it, but some may not. Vestiaire Collective is a marketplace dedicated to second-hand luxury fashion. It's a global business. We have 1 billion of GMV, 60% across Europe, 30% in the US, where we indeed completed a big acquisition last year, and 10% across Asia. So about M&A, we're a global marketplace. We have one app, one catalog of luxury fashion good. Vestiaire managed to be a very simple business model because luxury is made of global brands. So it's the same Hermès, Chanel, Louis Vuitton everywhere in the world. Same brand, same product. And we are an asset-light business, very much relying on technology, and therefore it was not easy, but scaling was not a huge challenge for us. We bought a business in the US last year called Tradesy, which was the second largest marketplace, again dedicated to second-hand luxury fashion. Purpose, our industry is quite nascent. Brand awareness of Vestiaire Collective or Tradesy is quite low, notably in the US. So the idea behind this acquisition was to migrate the users of Tradesy into Vestiaire Collective, whether those were sellers, we've migrated the whole catalog onto Vestiaire Collective, or buyers, whom progressively we migrated towards Vestiaire. And from a technology perspective, was a big challenge, I would say. We delivered the migration quite rapidly, within 4 to 5 months, end of last year. From a cloud perspective, to be honest, it was quite direct. They were using one of your competitors. So for us, it was more about, terminating their platform, which we shut down at the end of last year. And we got massive volumes on Vestiaire Collective. And then, there were we became, I would say, a more strategic player for AWS. So we had, commercial discussion because we had more volumes, and, anticipating in a merger context, not that easy to anticipate how your volumes will evolve. So we had a lot of discussions with your team, with Valérie, who's here, about our business plan, and I think we became a more important strategic partner.
Thank you. Just one additional question. So you said 4 to 5 months to integrate the other company on the technical side. What was the most tricky part of this integration? What was the real difficulty that you had to face?
When I say 4 to 5 months, I'm even insisting a bit more because we did it quite rapidly. there was a big, like the biggest challenge was the taxonomy. So it's a marketplace. We're selling product. Describing one luxury good is not that difficult, but if you're going to migrate a catalog, and it was a catalog of 2 million products at Tradesy migrated onto Vestiaire Collective, you just want to make sure that the product will land properly on the platform, so that discoverability works, so that search works properly, and so on. So it was very much making sure that we were properly aligning the two catalogs. That was the biggest challenge.
Got it. Thank you very much, Bernard.
Thank you.
Emric, your story is super different, and I'm super happy to have you on stage as well. Can you tell us one of the recent acquisitions you made, without naming the company, but exactly like Bernard said, what was your complexity? How did you acquire the company? How did you manage to, I would say, scale in the name of DL Software? Did you have to build something like a common framework to acquire those different niche software that you acquired from the past years?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So maybe just a few words about DL Software. So DL Software is a software editor dedicated in a different vertical, in different niche industry. And we have 25 to 30 companies within the group, with each time one or two software dedicated to a specific niche. So it can be in retail industry, for example, real estate, in construction industry, and in healthcare industry also. One of our company, to give an example, is dedicated to a healthcare center for dental health, and we provide business software for them. So we do around 5 to 10 acquisitions per year. So it's kind of a good rhythm, let's say. And each time the integration and the reason for the acquisition can be different. Sometimes it's really something that we want to integrate to our offer. So it means that we really need to build some bridges between their technology and ours. Sometimes we acquire them for the technology and we want to have technical synergies, and not really marketing synergies, but more technical synergies. We want to take advantage of a technical stack and deploy it on other softwares that we have in the group. And sometimes it's just completing the offer that we propose to the customer. So depending on the acquisition strategy, let's say, the integration can be completely different.
So if I follow you, your idea, so each company acquired has potentially a different stack of technology. You can merge them and let them run their application on their own stack, or you can completely re-engineer their stack to merge with your own framework, or is it
yes,
case by case?
Yes, that's exactly that, case by case. Of course, they were a completely independent company, so they have their own technical stack, their own hoster sometimes, and yeah, the idea is to take advantage of their technology, but also to modernize them, to help them to migrate to the cloud, but it's not the case, to help them to fit to what we think is a good software today, so web-based, SaaS, multi-tenancy, with API, with data. So we have a kind of a framework that defines what we want in terms of technology, and we help them to modernize following this framework.
When you say modernize, can you elaborate a little bit for the audience? Is it kind of microservices, or is it something different? Or you implement serverless from them?
Yes, the target is definitely microservices, serverless infrastructure, cloud-based, with data-oriented, and with an API-based application and web-based application. But in fact, when we acquire the company, sometimes it's really legacy technological stack. It can be still client-server mode. Sometimes it's host on-premise at the customer premise. So we need, in this case, to completely modernize the offer, to switch from on-prem license-based model to a SaaS software.
Bernard, I wanted to ask you a similar question. So Emric is moving from on-prem to SaaS model. You were born in the cloud, so a kind of a SaaS model already from the beginning. Did you have to adapt your licensing model when you acquired Tradesy, for example, or did you have to change some of your, I would say, historical way of doing the business today, integrating your products and your catalog?
So it's a quite technical question. My background is more finance, but I understand that Vestiaire, our key strength is that our business model is super simple. We have one model, which is supported by AWS. We have no intention to diversify too much. Second-hand luxury fashion is a really niche market. It's really nascent. It's quite visible because it's relatively cool around luxury, technology, sustainability. So it gets, I would say, disproportionate visibility, but it's a nascent market. So everything we do is as simple as possible. So when we bought Trady, which was a competitor, the core value of that business was the customer list and the catalog. So our focus was to migrate this catalog in the most seamless fashion in order, not to affect the experience of Trady sellers. And then it was very much a commercial effort vis-à-vis the Trady buyer to tell them, listen, come to Vestiaire, prices are lower, catalog is much broader, and you'll do good deals. So it was, a very simple project, very simple process. We didn't have the complexity that Emric is describing because he's acquiring a lot of businesses in order to drive its growth. It's part of their model. For us, M&A was more of an opportunistic move. We may continue. We were super happy with the result. It did allow us to gain a lot of time in the US. So we gained maybe 2-3 years of organic growth. So this we loved, but we also loved the fact that it did not bring any additional complexity on Vestiaire Collective. The only complexity when coming back to the relationship with AWS was that it became a bit more difficult for us to project what was going to be the growth of Vestiaire and therefore what were going to be our AWS need and cloud services need, because we didn't really know how the customer of Trady were going to behave once they hit the Vestiaire Collective platform. The good news is that they behave super well. So again, we're super happy with the acquisition, both from a technical perspective, but also from a commercial perspective.
Another point that I wanted to ask you was around training, because we know that acquire a company impacts a kind of a cultural change. You have the historical Vestiaire Collective culture. I guess Trady has its own culture. Did you have to train people to fit with your culture, to fit with your platform, or was it natural?
So it was not natural at all. Trady was based in Los Angeles, operating with a fully remote business model. So they had no offices, working on the cloud with a competitor and so on. So everything was extremely different. And again, for us, it was extremely important to follow our trajectory, which was working super well, was working better than that of Trady. And therefore, from a cultural perspective, the integration, was not the easiest, I would say. And, it came with a lot of learnings for the future. But we adapted in the end and got along decently okay.
Emric, same question, more or less. I would say, how was the cultural integrations for the companies that you bought? I guess it's more a massive scale for you because it's kind of normal to acquire a software company within DL. But I guess, again, did you have to train the people? Did you have to explain the culture of DL and such?
I would say that first, when we select a company that we want to acquire, we make sure that we can have a cultural fit with them. So maybe on the technical part, it's not exactly aligned to our framework, but at least on the cultural part, it's completely aligned. So with a bigger entrepreneurship mindset, which is very important for us, a growth mindset and expert mindset in their specific niche. Every company that we acquire are number one or number two on their niche market. So it's really business experts, I would say. And then on the technical part, I need to say that it's the easy part, let's say, because tech guys always want to do some new stuff. So, okay, there is new technology. You need to try some some POC for cloud, for new languages and so on. But tech guys are kind of innovation friendly, let's say. So
there is a real motivation from them.
Exactly.
And not the fear of being fired after 2 months. Okay.
Yeah, no, not really. So they really want to try, and we try by doing. This is something that we really want to deploy at DL Software. So we make sure that we are not going to start a 1 month or 2 months training on a new technology before typing the first line of code. You try, you make something, even very small thing, but you make a POC, you make something, and you learn by doing.
And did you learn from the people, I mean, from the company you acquired in the past? Did you learn some, I would say, good practice of using the cloud, good practice of developing, things like that?
Yeah, definitely. Each company that we acquire, sometimes they are better than us on some specific points. It could be IT security, it could be compliancy, it could be many different things. It could be CI/CD also. We acquired really recently a company that was really modern in terms of CI/CD, delivering a new version every day and sometimes many times a day. Of their SaaS application, so this was really interesting to learn from it and to somehow deploy it elsewhere in the company.
Question for you, Bernard. Thank you, Emeric. We talk about M&A, but we talk also about private equity and funding. How do you combine the fund, the equity, and the investors helping you to grow? And the fact that you use a platform like AWS today, how does it help you to scale within an organization such as Vestiaire Collective?
Yeah. So first, let me give a quick snapshot on who the investors behind Vestiaire are. I think they match very much what we're doing around luxury, sustainability, and technology. On the luxury side, we have Kering as one of our key shareholders, and Condé Nast, which is the editor of Vogue. On the sustainability part, we have Generation IM, which is a fund that was founded by Al Gore, the former US vice president, which has been very active on the sustainability field. And then on the growth side or technology side, we have investors from Asia like SoftBank, in Europe, Eurazeo, in the US, Tiger. Now, I would say two things. First, being well-funded, as we are, allows you to anticipate. So when you're well-funded, you are in a position of strength, and in your discussion with AWS, you have, for instance, the ability to prepay certain payment, which is good for you, is good for us, and this we've been doing it, and it's been quite efficient. Then also very concretely, when you have investors who are invested in various tech companies, it is extremely helpful to talk to them, because through their exposure to those other companies, they have a more comprehensive view and a more important, or at least a complementary role in the relationship with AWS, and it can be quite beneficial to us. So for instance, using one very concrete example, Eurazeo is a very big investor in Vestiaire Collective, but in many companies in the French tech industry, and they've been a great partner for Vestiaire, thinking about how we could optimize our relationship with various providers, AWS being the main provider we use.
So when you mean like they were giving you some advice, they were also telling you that from the other funding experience that they have, you should do this and that with AWS because you can make some scaling savings, like upfront payment and reservation of instances?
I don't know how far I can go. It was quite concrete, to be honest. It was quite concrete, but it's very much, again, I think, this French tech dynamic is very positive. If you're doing something alone, if we were the sole tech, just a couple of tech companies running hard, you can do what you can do, but at the end, having this French success is very beneficial, I think, for us, and leveraging the experience from the other companies in e-commerce. We were talking about Mano Mano, we were talking about Back Market earlier. It does allow us to get best practices from others and to improve. And I think that even for AWS, it's helpful to have this, various experience with a lot of companies and so on, in order also to say, this company did that and, proceeded like that. I think it could be a good. It is an environment that is extremely fluid among companies and with AWS, and for us, it's extremely valuable. Extremely valuable.
Aymeric, thank you, Bernard.
And very concrete. So
no, that's
really.
I like the honesty of the speech. That's why we are here today. Aymeric, do you also have such a relation with your investors? And can you share to the audience some of your learnings, what you get at DL Software, and in terms of how you would improve using a partner such as AWS?
Yeah. So our main investor is TA Associates, so it's an American fund, and I think that we have the chance that now it has been understood by the financial market that being on the cloud is really a key success factor, and especially on the enterprise value part. So our investor is really willing to help us to migrate and to move to the cloud. It was not for them. It was not oh my God, there is additional cost, or we fear that you may have some variable cost and it's not going to work. They were really convinced by the fact that cloud were going to bring innovation, ability to hire more easily, and a whole bunch of good things. So they were really happy for this move, and they encouraging this move. And they were also working with AWS with other companies that they acquired. So it was really natural, let's say, to work with them and with AWS.
Thank you, Aymeric. Another question, maybe I will continue with you, Aymeric. Do you have any metrics that you follow when you acquire a company in terms of time to acquisition? Yeah, if I would say that. Like, the experience of Bernard, it's probably unique. It's not at the same regularity than DL Software, I guess. But can you share an experience to the audience about what kind of metrics do you use to follow the success of the integration of a software company within DL Software at group level?
Yes. So the first step of the integration of a new acquisition is deploying the KPIs. So we are really a KPI-oriented company. So first thing we do within 1 or 2 months is having the KPI deployed on this new acquisition, so that we can consolidate everything to the group level and monitor the evolution of the different KPI. The key KPI that we are following are recurring revenue, definitely, but more precisely recurring revenue depending on the type of product. So we want the recurring revenue on cloud-based product to rise, of course, and we follow also business acquisition, so new leads, the funnel. So we deploy very quickly Salesforce on each acquisition that we have, so that we can follow the KPIs in terms of commerce side, let's say, and then the finance part, of course, obviously. So to track the evolution of the EBITDA, the cash of the company also, and stuff like that. And so as soon as we acquire, we deploy the KPI and we follow it in the time, so that we can see what was the plan of the company itself, and what has been deployed more, and what was the value that has been created by the acquisition in the other company of the group, or in the business unit that we have, through the synergies that we have been able to leverage.
General time is what? 3 months, 6 months, like Bernard, or is it?
Within 1 or 2 months, we have the KPI.
Okay.
Then within, I would say, 3 to 6 months, we start to have the technical synergies that happen, and then the commercial synergies that follow.
Thanks, Emeric. Bernard, do you have similar metric approach? I mean, TradeZ is the concrete example, but did you also pilot this acquisition using some KPIs and metrics, and do you use that regularly on your business to scale?
Yeah. So it's all about data. So we are following KPI all the time. On TradeZ, for us there were two objectives. We acquired the business. We completed the acquisition in April, and for us, the end of the year is a big sales period. So it was quite important to migrate the catalog before that period. And when I say before that period, it's even before October, because then in October you start to motivate the sellers to lower their price, so that in November, when people are shopping, they get good deals. So the main KPI for us was time. Quite simple. Be ready as soon as possible. Then it was on the migration percentage of the catalog, and we had some hesitation on do we focus on the number of sellers or do we focus on the number of products. In the end, we focused on the number of products because it was maybe easier because you have few sellers, you know, representing a large part of the business. So that was the priority, migrating those sellers, even though maybe it would have been good to focus on sellers as well, because sellers are recurring. It's better to have 1,000 sellers selling one product than one seller selling 1,000 products, because then you have, you know, more traffic, more activity, and you're not dependent on one person. The problem with migrating a lot of sellers is that it would have taken more time to achieve it, because when you're focusing on individual sellers, some may migrate rapidly, some may take more time. And for us, it was quite critical to shut down the other platform as soon as possible. Like migrate, but also shut down the other platform, because once you shut down the other platform, you force business to occur on Vestiaire Collective, and importantly, you stop all the costs on the other side. So, it was very much, you know, how many products do you migrate, how much time it takes to do so. Then there were other KPIs on the buyer side, but the buyer migration was a process which took longer, because even today, so the acquisition, we completed it in April last year. Even today, every day, we have roughly 100 to 150 new buyers on Vestiaire Collective who were TradeZ members. So the business migration from a buyer perspective is continuing to occur every day, and it's a continuous process. So this, we're following it quite closely. We're also following the new sellers who were TradeZ members, but on this, there was a big push at the time of the seller migration before October 2022, and therefore it's smaller numbers.
Do you have learned from this acquisition to be able to scale to, let's say tomorrow your corporate management says, okay, let's acquire another large competitor of this market with 300 millions of reference? Do you think you have this scalability to acquire another company, or do you still think of any blocker?
Yeah, so it's confidential, so I won't say too much.
No, don't name an acquisition. Just tell us if you have learned from
it is clear it was our first acquisition. Even me as a banker, I've done so many deals, but what was very striking was that when we did the TradeZ deal, so as a manager, you know, I attended this first meeting post-acquisition with the two founders of Vestiaire Collective, with our CEO, with the two founders of TradeZ. It was very new to me, and you discover, you know, the dynamic in the room and the people dynamic. So for all of us, it was very new, and it is clear that we've learned a lot from a technology perspective, but to be honest, it went super well. But from a commercial perspective and from a people perspective, there were a lot of learnings. And now, given that overall the transaction created a lot of value, it did motivate us to look at more transaction, because we think it can save a lot of time, it can create value, it can allow Vestiaire to scale further, become a more visible business. So it was a good experience and giving us the appetite to do more.
Yeah, thank you. Emric, the question should not be the same for you because it's more like normal for DL Software to acquire companies, so you massively scale. But is there any constraint or blocker that you still have in mind that if tomorrow your management comes to you and say, hey, Emric, we're going to acquire a large software ERP company in the group, is there any blocker that you have in mind that you will not be able to address today, or you think that the fact that you are in the cloud with AWS is really something that will smooth any type of acquisition?
Not really. I would say that the further they are from the cloud, the better the synergy can be somehow. So meaning we have a lot of value to bring in technology to this kind of company. So it means for me it's a good challenge, let's say, and we can leverage a lot of value from this kind of acquisition. I wouldn't say that there is really a blocker. What I can say is that when I evaluate, when I do an audit of a company before acquiring it, I make sure that on the IT security parts there is no big breach or big risk. So that would be probably my main focus. So make sure that first it's secure, and the second point would be probably, is it scalable? So because we know that with DL Software we are probably going to have a bigger growth for this company. So is it scalable? Can we have additional customers on the platform, or do we need to change something on the core model?
In terms of scalability, do you also face challenge on worldwide coverage, access your platform everywhere in the globe? Is that kind of scalability topics that you are thinking of? Or?
Yeah, definitely. 2 years ago, the business of DL Software was only in France almost. But with the last acquisition that we made, we did one acquisition in Spain and another one in Netherlands. So now we have customer in Europe and everywhere in the world, especially with this Spanish acquisition. So it means that we really need to make sure that the company that we acquire, we will be able to deploy their business internationally somehow by leveraging the acquisition that we've done before.
Okay, got it. I'm conscious of time, and we arrived to the end. I just want to close this roundtable with you, gentlemen, with if you would have one advice to give to the audience here to think of how can I be prepared for an M&A using the AWS cloud, what would it be?
For me, it's a very challenging question. Can I respond something else?
I keep it for the end. That's my last question. So.
The only advice I was asked before at another roundtable, it's quite interesting. Like this year, we're coming and it's all about IA, and everyone is talking about IA. And I think last year I was not there, but everyone was talking about metaverse. And the year before, everyone was talking about blockchain. In our companies, in startup companies, there's a lot of opportunities, including in M&A, a lot of opportunities. And it's the key, especially in this macro environment, which is quite challenging, is to be very focused on our priorities and focus on our, on those priorities. For Vestiaire Collective, we have a very simple business model. I think this, which very much relies on the cloud and on AWS, this simplicity is a key strength for us, and deviating from it, would be a risky move. And given that our industry is extremely nascent, we should continue to focus on this huge opportunity around fashion resale and deliver what we need to deliver on that front. So it will be for us a bit more of the same, but hopefully with a lot of growth and a lot of excitement.
Thank you, Bernard. Emric, the last word,
yes.
As an advice?
Time to think about the answer. Thank you very much. So I would say that it's probably about human interaction. Because when you acquire a company, the company that you are acquiring is kind of, they don't really know how is it going to work. Are you going to be really working with destroying everything that they have been doing? Are you only going to just to have a look? So I would say go there, meet the people, talk to them, and make sure that you really understand how they're working. Look at the code, look at the process, spend human interaction time with them. I would say it's really, really important to make sure that you really understand how they are working and to leverage the maximum value of this acquisition.
Super interesting. Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. I think you can applaud them because it was a great session. I hope you learned a lot of things. Thank you very much, and wish to work with you again. I wish you a nice VivaTech. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We managed to have people while Elon Musk is talking.
So all the people here are really interested because you should be with Elon Musk.